Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gift. In this video I'll be making this princess that bustier 6 pieces top. I'll be drafting the front pattern first. I already have a straight line at the top of the paper which is going to serve as my shoulder line. So from my shoulder line to my bust point is 10 inches which I just marked. Then from my shoulder to my under bust line is 13 inches. I'm going to mark it. Then from my shoulder to my waistline is 15 inches. I'm going to mark it. Then my top length is 20 inches. I'm going to roll out the dot on a straight line. So for the top length, I'm going to increase it on my fabric. This is where my paper stops. That is why it's 20 inches. So I'm going to make it 23 inches while cutting my fabric. So I'm going to label the lines. The first line is my bust point. The second line is my under bust, then my waistline and my top length. So from the center of my paper on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches. I'm going to come down by 1 inch from that 8 inches as my shoulder slope. Then from my shoulder slope, I'm going to mark my round armhole measurements divided by 2, which is going to give me 8 inches. Then I'm going to connect the two dots together on a straight line. For the neckline, I'll be taking the width of 3 inches and the depth of 3 inches, and I'm going to connect them together like this. Then I'm going to connect the shoulder slope to the neckline area in a slanted way like this. Now I'm going to roll out a straight line across this armhole line, and it's going to serve as my chest line. Now I'm going to be marking the midpoint of my armhole line, so I'm going to place my tape on the line and I'm going to fold it over like this to get the midpoint, that is the armhole divided into 2. Then I'm going to go in by half an inch from the midpoint. So on my chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurements divided by 4 there. Then I'm going to connect the midpoint to the bust measurements and to the top of the armhole line like this. From the center of the paper, I'm going to be marking my darts, that is my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 4. So I'm supposed to mark it from my bust point. So I'm going to mark it from my bust point and I'm going to roll a straight line to the top length. So I'm going to clean that. The line on my chest line is supposed to start from my bust point and not my chest line. So I'm going to clean it off, and the dart is going to start from the bust point. On my under bust line, I'm going to go in by half an inch on this side of my dart line. So I marked half an inch on this side of the dart line. Then on the other side of the dart line, I'm going to be going out by 1.5 inch. So I went in by 1.5 inch and half an inch here. So I'm going to roll out the dots on a straight line to my top length. I'm going to connect the lines to my bust point with my curved ruler like this. So I'm going to go up by half an inch from my bust point line like this. So make sure you connect that half an inch to your dart line like this. So I'm going to connect the half an inch to the midpoint of my armhole line. So the midpoint I marked earlier, I'm going to use this side of my curved ruler to connect it to this point like this. So I'm going to go out by 1 inch from my bust measurements on my chest line. Then I'm going to go in by half an inch from this point of the line I connected to my midpoint. So I'm going to come down by half an inch like this. Then I'm going to go up from that line by half an inch also. Then I'm going to connect it to this half an inch I came up by from my bust points like this. So just look at what I'm doing. So I'm going to connect the half an inch on this side to that point, then on the up part as well I'm going to connect the half an inch to that same point. From this point I'm going to go out by 1 inch, then I'm going to extend the line to that 1 inch. So I'm going to extend this line to the 1 inch I marked on my chest line earlier. So this is going to be the new armhole. So I'm going to make it curvy. So use the curved part of your ruler, or if you are using your freehand, you make it curvy as if you are drawing your armhole. So this is the new armhole for the blouse. Now I'm going to be marking my body measurement. So I already have my bust measurements divided by 4 on my chest line. So that is half an inch, and I added 1.5 inch stitching allowance to it. On my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurements divided by 4. Then I'm going to replace the dart. The dart is 2 inches. So I'm going to mark the 2 inches. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inches seam allowance to it. So I marked the 1.5 inch. So on the top length, I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. I'm going to replace the dart of 2 inches. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inch stitching allowance to it as well. Then I'm going to connect all the points, all the dots together like this. So I'm just going to be marking the sides I'll be cutting out from the paper. Then I'm going to cut off the excess part of the paper like this. So I'm going to label my patterns. This is my center front and this is my side front. So I'm going to highlight my waistline like this because I'll be needing it. So I'll be using this paper as the extension from my waistline in order to get that flare effect at the down part of this top. So I'm going to use my sellotape and my pin to hold this down. My sellotape is not enough, so if you have a masking tape you can use it to hold it down, or a sellotape. So from this side of the paper I'm going to be going out by 3 inches like this. Then I'm going to connect that 3 inches point to my waistline like this. So this is what I have at this side. So I'm going to connect the length to the length of my paper like this, and I'm going to cut off the excess parts. So this is the side front. I'm going to be adding it to the other side of the paper as well. So for my waistline I'm going to use my sellotape and my pin to hold this paper down, just like I did for the other side. So I'm going to use my sellotape and my pin to hold it down. After holding it down I'm going to go out by 3 inches like this. Then I'm going to connect it to my waistline like this. Then I'm going to connect the length to the length of the paper. Then I'm going to cut off the excess part of the paper. For the center front, I'm just going to add it to this side. I'm not going to add it to the center of the paper. So I'm going to place it like I'm going to place the paper from my waistline like this. Then I'm going to pin it down. I'm going to go out by 3 inches just like I did for the other side. Then I'm going to connect it to my waistline. Then I'm going to connect the length to the length of the paper, and I'm going to cut off the excess part. So this is the center front. I'm not going to be adding it to the center. I'm just going to be adding it to the side alone. So this is it for the front part, and I'm going to proceed to the back. So on this paper, I already have a straight line at the top of the paper, which is my shoulder line. I have my zipper allowance of 2 inches. Now I'm going to be taking my measurement. For my zipper allowance, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches. I'm going to come down by 1 inch as my shoulder slope. From my shoulder slope to my armhole measurement is 8 inches. My round armhole measurement divided by 2 is 8 inches. So I'm going to connect the 2 points on a straight line like this. Then I'm going to connect the shoulder slope to the shoulder line in a slanted way like this. Then I'm going to rule a straight line across my armhole line, which is going to serve as my chest line. From my shoulder to my waistline is 15 inches, then the top length is 20 inches. So this is the back pattern. There will be no need to add your under bust line and the other lines we add for the back. For the neckline, I'm going to be taking the depth of 1.5 inch and the width of 3 inches. Then I'm going to connect the points together like this. Make sure you extend the neckline to the zipper allowance because I extended mine later on. I'm going to divide my armhole line into two to get the midpoint. That is 4 inches. I marked the 4 inches. So on my chest line, I'm going to mark my bust measurements divided by 4. Note that I'm taking all these measurements after my zipper allowance. So I'm going to connect the midpoint of the armhole line to the bust measurements on the chest line like this. For my zipper allowance line, I'm going to mark my that is my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 4, which is 4 inches. So I came down by 1 inch from my chest line that I marked the dot. So I'm going to be extending the dot on a straight line to my top length. So on my waistline, I'm going to go in by 0.5 inch on both sides of the dot line. I'm going to connect the 0.5 inch to the top of my dart line like this. So from the top length, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect it to the 0.5 inch on the waistline like this. So on my chest line for my zipper allowance, I've already marked my bust measurements divided by 4. I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurements divided by 4. Then I'm going to replace the dart of 1 inch. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inches stitching allowance to it as well. On the top length, I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inches stitching allowance. Then I'm going to connect all the dots together like this. I'm going to extend my armhole line to the measurements like this. Then I'm going to extend my waistline to my zipper allowance. So on the waistline on my zipper allowance, I'm going to be going in by 0.5 inch. Then I'm going to connect it to the top like this. Then I'm going to connect it down like this as well. I'm doing this in order to eliminate any form of back bulge or zipper bulge. Now I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement into two equal parts. So I'm going to fold my tape over like this. Then I'm going to mark the center. Then I'm going to connect the center to my dart line like this. I'm going to connect it with this side of my curved ruler to I'm going to connect it to the top of the dart line like this. So we are not drafting princess that's for the back. So we have to split the back into two in order to add that effect we added to the front earlier. So that's why I'm doing this. So I'm going to cut off the excess part of the paper and I'm going to split the center of the pattern open. So I'm going to highlight the waistline of the back to make it more visible. Just like we did for the front, I'm going to be extending the waist with this paper. So I'm just going to join the paper together like this. Then I'm going to go out by 3 inches like this. Then I'm going to connect that 3 inches to the waistline. Then I'm going to connect the length to the length of the paper like this and cut off the excess part. So this is my center front. This is my center back. Sorry, I'm just going to add it to one side. That is the side. I'm not going to add it to the part where there is zipper allowance. So I'm going to cut off the excess parts like this and label it. This is my center back and this is my zipper allowance. So for the side back, I'm going to add it to the both side because it is the side. So I'm going to attach a paper from the waistline. I'm going to go out by 3 inches. Then I'm going to connect the length of the paper together and cut the excess part. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side as well. So I'm done attaching the papers on both sides and I'm going to label this part as my side back. So this is my side back. So with this we are done with the back pattern. This is the center back and this is the side back. So this is everything we drafted. This is the center front and this is the side front. So with this we have come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like, you subscribe to this channel if you're not yet a subscriber, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.